All right, hello everyone. Welcome to a special follow-up episode of Psychology of RPGs. I'm Spencer Campbell, and with me today I've got Jeff Stormer, author of Anyone Can Wear the Mask, the game that we talked about in the last video. So, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell the folks who you are and a little bit about this game.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jeff Stormer. I am a podcaster, game designer, and the unofficial official LARP designer of the Olive Garden restaurant. I am specifically the designer of Anyone Can Wear the Mask, like Spencer mentioned, which is a three-player tabletop role-playing game based on Beyond the Rift by Dee Pennyway about a superhero, a supervillain, and the city that they share. And it is my love letter to superheroes. It is my my college, it is my 10 years late collegiate thesis. True story, I did technically major in comic books. It's my English degree specification. So this is quite literally me like putting my college degree to use in the most tangible way that I could.
I had no idea that was even something that you could specialize in, so
Uh
that is awesome.
Sheer random luck and chance. Ohio State, when I went there, like opened, I want to say my freshman year, the first ever comic book research library, the Billy Ireland Comic Research Library. It was the first of its kind, and they just happened to have several enough English classes that were comic book focused that I was able to build an English program out of it. And
That's
so it is my party icebreaker fact.
that is super 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 cool. Um, so because I was gonna say, obviously from reading this and from what I know about you, you're a superhero fan, and I was
Yes.
gonna sort of ask, where does that come from? I now see where at least some of it is being fueled, but I mean, have you always been a superhero fan?
Oh god, as far back as I can remember, I think the only things that I have loved longer than superheroes are the Muppets and the Simpsons. Aside from those two things, I mean, some of my earliest memories are of being like 4 or 5 years old. I remember I must have been, I want to say it dropped in 92. Don't at me if I'm wrong, but I think Batman the Animated Series dropped in 92, and I would have been like 4 or 5, so I would have been right at like kindergarten age when those first episodes of Batman the Animated Series dropped, and like just being utterly captivated at everything that was unfolding on screen, and it fundamentally shaped the things I was excited about ever since.
Sounds like we're very similar age then, because yeah, I remember as a kid around that same age, Batman, and then
Hmm.
the X-Men
Yep,
animated
X-Men
series.
X-Men launched right around the same time. I think Spider-Man dropped at the same time. The Tick happened at that point, which was very close to my heart. Like it was a good time for cartoon superheroes for children.
That's awesome. So, you kind of mentioned this idea that this game, Anyone Can Wear the Mask, is sort of a late thesis. And
Yes.
I'm curious then, when did you start writing this game? Because like you said, it's a hack of Beyond the Rift.
Hmm.
So, were you already sort of brewing on a game like this and then you found Beyond the Rift and you're like, this is how I'm going to do it? Or did you see Beyond the Rift first and then saw that's the framework I can kind of build off of?
I think it had to be I saw Beyond the Rift first. I mean, I can't say that I haven't always been thinking about superheroes in the context of games. Like it has been something that I have been thinking I'm always to a certain, that's my secret cap. I'm always thinking about this, but um like it was definitely something where I'd been thinking about similar games, and then I read Beyond the Rift, and then I played it with D for Party of One, and like playing it and sitting there, and I sat back and I was like, oh, I think deep down there is a superhero game in this that like will create very specifically that I think more than anything, the thing that I when I played Beyond the Rift, it turned into this is really my essay on Superman specifically.
Mm.
There's a reason that I wore my Superman shirt today. This is my essay on Superman and why Superman is not boring. And when I played Beyond the Rift, there are a number of things in that game that made me say, oh, yeah, this directly applies to like a Superman level superhero narrative story. And I want to kind of create that and make that into something that like speaks to why I love the archetype of Superman as sort of the ultimate, noble hero, like why that archetype speaks to me so specifically. And Beyond the Rift was just the perfect framework for it.
I've seen you on Twitter talk about Superman and Batman, like as a
Mhm.
common comparison that like a lot of people talk about. I even remember you even pointing out that like Batman gets coffee with the commissioner on New
Yep.
Year's Eve or something like. And so like there are like totally different sort of mindsets between these heroes,
Mhm.
and the way also that they're perceived by their community.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, first of all, that's clear in the game. Anyone can wear
Mhm.
the mask. This concept of where the hero's role is and how they're perceived by the community and everything like that. But it links up sort of with what I was talking about in my first video
For sure.
about why people help.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, at least from my understanding of Superman, which I'll admit is relatively limited, altruism seems to be his MO. Like he's doing it because he wants to help.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he just helping is just like his, it's not even a thought process sort of thing. Do you think that would be fair to say?
I think that is extremely fair to say, and I think like of all of the superheroes, of all of the superhero lore, Superman is sort of the ultimate picture of like superhero as altruism myth, because there are countless stories over the years where Superman either loses his powers or changes his powers, or like something happens and he finds another way to keep helping people because it's just like who he is as a person. There's very specifically a story where he loses all of his powers for a year, and in that year, he goes on to finally win the Pulitzer Prize that he's been chasing his entire career, because he, for the first time, it leans on his ability, on his like career as a reporter, and is like, well, if I can't help people as Superman, I can help people as Clark Kent, and proceeds to like expose, continue battling Lex Luthor and continue exposing him as a journalist, because it is his second nature to help people, like however he can find the capability to do that.
That's super cool. I had no idea about that storyline, but you're absolutely right. Like that represents it. Even when his
Mhm.
powers are taken away, his ability to do the stuff that we think of as the heroic stuff, he
Yeah.
still finds a way. He still finds a way to help because that's just his default mode.
Yeah.
As I was putting this, idea together, Superman was at the front of my mind for altruism. Do you think there's anybody else out there that really jumps out to you as like a superhero that embodies that concept of helping for the sake of helping?
For
Just
the
it's their
sake of
default.
for the sake of helping, I'd say, hmm, I feel like I have good examples for the social exchange and social
Mm.
responsibility. I'm trying to think if there's anybody that quite embodies pure altruism. I think I think if anything, it's very, very similarly. I think there's a lot of it in Wonder Woman, and there's a lot of it in the Flash, in terms of like they DC Comics, a lot of their sort of big flagship characters are sort of built on this mythology, and there's this common thread that runs through them that really dates back to Superman, which is like, you accept this mantle not because you have to, like not because the choice is sort of put upon you, but you accept it because it's the way that you can help people.
Mm.
And I think like there are characters that translate that more into, I have to protect these people because I have these skills and other people don't. I think Batman is like is the clearest example of like that mentality. But there are a lot of characters, I think Flash and Wonder Woman being two very good examples of saying like, I am doing this not because I have to, not because if I don't no one will, but I'm doing this because I want to step up and do this to help the people around me. And to me, like, I think you spoke to this in your last video, but that is really like, to me, that is a core part of the superhero myth, is, or the power of superhero as like an aspirational fantasy figure, is, I'm doing this not under obligation, but because I want to do the thing that will help the most people possible.
Yeah. So it I'm glad that you're such a DC expert because that's the of the two major
Mhm.
forms, that's the lesser for me. So I'm glad that you can kind of bring in some of that perspective because I don't, I don't know nearly enough about a lot of that stuff. So that's cool. So you mentioned that you had some ideas in mind for like the social
Mhm.
responsibility, like the norm stuff, and I want to save social exchange for last because I think it's maybe the most interesting to me. So social responsibility or norms, like superheroes that have, they
Yeah.
feel like it's a responsibility either because of their own like perceived norms or
Mhm.
expectations or the norms of the community that they are a part of. What sort of superheroes did you have in mind that are really good in or embodiments of that idea?
The two that come to mind immediately are, I mean, what you're kind of describing, like in terms of describing social responsibility, I don't feel like there's a better way to sum that up than with the sentence, with great power there must also come great responsibility. Like you can't find a better like summation sentence than that, than to point to Spider-Man and say like Spider-Man is not necessarily doing this because eh, he's not necessarily doing this because he wants to. He's doing this because he feels he has an obligation to other people, right? Like, and that is a core driving part of Spider-Man's psychology, of Spider-Man's sort of philosophy is I have to do this because I can, right? It's not that I'm choosing to do this because it's the right thing to do. It's I'm choosing to do this because I have these gifts, and if I don't, that like if I choose not to, that is a an acceptance of, or that is an allowance of harm, as opposed to I am doing this. It's almost the the mirror side, or the opposite like face of the coin. It's almost the flip of the coin to the Superman like philosophy, right? It's I'm doing this because I am choosing to do good. I'm doing this because I'm choosing not to allow harm. Like they're the same core philosophy, but kind of opposite sides of the coin. And it's the one that I think of most readily. And the other big example, I think the X-Men are like a perfect example of this, right? They are people who have chosen not just to be heroes, right? Like everybody, like the X-Men's whole deal is we are not choosing to be heroes, we are choosing to be like mutual protectors of our community, right? Like it is people doing good in a world that hates and fears them. The X-Men is a story about people saying I am making the choice to actively defend my community and protect the people around me who are vulnerable. Like I have these skills, and people in my town, in my community, in my space, in my of my people are suffering, and therefore I am accepting this to protect them, not just for the sake of doing good.
Yeah, I think that that word of community is so perfect for it too, because like
Mhm.
he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
Like that is the point for Spider-Man and for the X-Men and things like that. When I also think about social sort of responsibility and norms and things like that, a part of it is, giving help to the people that need help. And from like a social psychology perspective, they tend to focus on like kids and
Mhm.
the elderly, like I talked about in my video.
Yeah.
I'm trying to rack my brain of examples of maybe superheroes that have a code of like, because like Superman help everybody, right?
Yeah.
It's help everybody regardless of anything. Are there any that have like a code where like I'm not gonna help these people, or these are the people that I prioritize?
Hmm.
I'm trying to wonder if there are sort of like their own set of norms of like these are the people I'm gonna save first.
There's a great example that popped it as you were describing this, popped immediately into my head, of Green Arrow is a perfect example in terms of like he is regularly portrayed as the ultimate kind of like social populist hero, in that like he is very specifically a character that is described as I am going to help people in a position of like in a like I'm not here to protect the rich. It is I mean, I was struggling to find the right way to describe it, and then it hit me of, oh yeah, Robin Hood, the thing that Green Arrow's whole deal is. He's the thing that he's based on. But yeah, I mean, Green Arrow, and to that Robin Hoodian idea is he's like, I don't protect the rich because they can protect themselves. I'm
Hmm.
here to protect people from the rich. and it takes that social responsibility of I can do this and therefore I must, and it applies that idea of there are people in my community that are more needing of my support, and there are people that are less needing and more likely to be causing the harm that I have to prevent.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. He is a
He
Robin
is
Hood superhero.
the most Robin Hood.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I describe this character that steals, that fights the rich and defends them?
If
What's the thing?
only.
If only there were some concept here.
Yeah, that's perfect. So this idea of wealth and costs and things like that is a nice transition to the last form
Mhm.
of helping, or theory of helping. And this is the one that I'm most curious about, because I even mentioned it in the video that I couldn't think of anybody off the top of my head that lands in this camp, which is the idea of
Mhm.
social exchange. So you're weighing the costs of your effort and your help and things like that versus the reward that you would get. And it doesn't have to be a monetary reward. It could be like fame or
Mhm.
admiration or anything like that. But I'm curious if you have examples of heroes that you think, even if it's not the only thing that they
Yeah.
abide by, like it's in them to some degree.
I have a lot of great examples,
Oh, great.
and I'm so excited to share them. On one level, I mean, we already mentioned him like primarily doing good through another context, but like Spider-Man does make a living by like doing hero stuff. Like that is a literal thing. He does do that to literally get pictures of himself to pay the bills. Like that is a literal translation of I'm going to help you, and by doing this, it's going to directly benefit my me. But the some of the best examples I can think of, one of the most, I think, popular and like prominent examples I can think of is Deadpool is quite literally a mercenary by trade. Like he takes contracts, and he has that's very specific code, like what we were talking about in terms of like a social in terms of like a social obligation of like I don't hurt good people. I don't kill, it's no kids. Like I don't harm people who are in a position, who are helpless, but and I hunt bad people, but he is very he is very specifically a mercenary taking jobs for money. And along those lines, there's also Luke Cage and Iron Fist, who are the heroes for hire. In
Mm.
that, in the comics, especially, they literally run a small storefront on the like on the corner of their block, where you can go in and go, "Hey, I need a superhero. There is a supervillain," and they will negotiate a contract with you, and then go do their hero thing. Like it is that, I mean, and that phrase, right? Like heroes for hire is the social exchange. Like that is the most prominent like phrasing in, if we're going for with great power there must also come great responsibility. The phrase heroes for hire is that social exchange, and that was the one that when I was watching the video I was like, there it is, I got it, heroes for hire, we're locked in. And then the last example that I would give is there is possibly my favorite superhero, even more than Superman, just purely for emotional reasons, is the character of Booster Gold. Talk to you about Booster Gold because he's close to my heart.
Please do.
Booster Gold is a museum worker in the 25th century. He was a failed football star. He was caught betting. He was caught betting on himself and was like cast out of football and ends up as a janitor in a museum. So he steals a janitorial robot and a bunch of superhero gear from throughout superhero history, and then travels back in time to the 1980s and says, I'm going to become a superhero. Everybody's going to be blown away by me. And I'm going to use this to score sweet sponsorships and become like a corporate icon. And I love it. And in the grand arc of superheroism, he learns to do good for goodness sake and becomes, something better than himself. But that idea of I am here so that people look up to me and see me as the hero, and I get both literal monetary compensation and just adulation and fame out of this, is like, it's the perfect social exchange idea, right? It is I'm not even factoring you into this. This is about how good I look and how well I can sell myself.
I was only aware of Booster Gold as a name of a superhero. I'm so glad
Oh,
I know so much more about
I
Booster
love
Gold.
I love
What
Booster
a
Gold.
concept. What an absolute
That
concept.
doesn't, we don't even get into my favorite Booster Gold concept, which I don't think ties into the episode, but I'm still going to tell you about
Of
it because it's
course.
great. There was a run in 2013, I believe. It may have been earlier. I think it might actually, I'm almost certain it was earlier, but doesn't matter. There's a run of his book where he is pulled into the past. He gets pulled out of time by another time traveler who tells him, I need you to basically like protect the time stream from time traveling supervillains that would mess with it. Like, I need you to protect the time stream. And the reason that I need you is because everybody thinks that you're a complete failure and like you're nobody. And we need you to continue to act like a complete failure and klutz. Because if anybody figures out that you're secretly the hero protecting the time stream, someone will go back in time and kill you as a baby. Like, it's just accepted that if they catch on to this, you're going to get shot as a baby. And like, so the entire thing is that he's secretly like traveling through time and correcting paradoxes and, you know, preventing superheroes from having their origin stories messed with. But like, anytime he appears in the present, he has to like botch a case or like do something badly so that everybody goes, Booster Gold, that guy sucks. And then secretly he's like saving the multiverse. And it's a concept that is so perfect that I wish that they had done more with it. And I think about that might be one of my favorite runs of comics of all time.
That's wonderful. That's really, really great. You know, as you were listing off the examples of folks, you know, you mentioned it a little bit in your actual play on Party of One for
Mhm.
when you played Anyone Can Wear the Mask. There's sort of like tiers of superheroes, like your
Yeah.
street level all the way up to like cosmic level and
Mhm.
everything like that. It seems, at least from, and I know there's arguments about Spider-Man one way or another, but it seems like they're more towards like the street level or just above street level are going to be where you're finding folks that are doing that social exchange
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
theory. And then the more power that one gets, the more they move away from the like the need to have that exchange or something along those lines.
Oh, 100%. And I think like there is a very powerful kind of reason for that that does kind of date back to Superman, which is that and it's one of the things that I love about superheroes deep down is that superheroes are an aspirational fantasy, right? Like the myth of Superman is that somebody receives ultimate power and chooses to use. I mean, we have the screen up in front of us. The first lines in the book itself are, "This is an imaginary story which may never happen, but which then again may, about someone with great power who chooses to use that power only for the good of all." Like that's the myth of Superman, right? The myth of Superman is that this person is the most powerful person on earth, is far and away the most powerful human there is. And instead of having that power corrupt him, instead of using that power for selfish reasons, chooses purely out of the good of his heart to use that power to help everyone on earth. Like, that is the aspirational myth of Superman. And you talked about it on the video, like the idea that we are not Superman, but we can be, right? And even the heroes that are tied to that social exchange, right? Even those heroes, even your heroes for hire, even your Booster Golds, your Deadpools, they are still making choices to help people. They still have these gifts and they get something out of it, but they are still on the whole choosing to do things to help people. And like that, even that, like that level, it ties into the aspirational idea of superheroes on the most sort of primal level, which is, I have a thing that I can help people, and to make the choice, the conscious concerted effort to use that to benefit other people.
That that sets up so nicely, or transition so nicely to the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is sort of the tone of the game, or this concept of
Mm-hmm.
like hope, right? Because when we talk about helping people, it makes us hopeful, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, through when you were writing Anyone Can Wear the Mask, was that sort of a goal of yours, was to try and capture that idea of like the aspirational fantasy of like we can be good. I mean, it's
Mhm.
in the name of the game itself. So I'm just curious of like what that was like for you in terms of trying to find ways to translate that tone into the game itself.
100%, and some of that comes directly from Beyond the Rift, in that there is some one of the core sort of narrative beats of the game, which is that you have the hero, they overcome challenges, eventually they face a downfall, and eventually they stop whatever that big threat is. Like that arc of it is the thing from Beyond the Rift that made me go, "Aha, wait a second." And but to your point, like so much yes, like the most possible yes in terms of to me that's what I love about superheroes. And I when I started writing this, like really truly in my heart I had said I can't make this game and not have it have this particular tone, because if I write something else, it's not going to be this game. Like this game works with this tone. And for me, like there are so many little touches that like so many of the little things that I needed, like the mechanics, a lot of them played perfectly into it. I love the idea that I love the idea, like the mechanic that the hero always wins. Like the fundamental like core mechanic of the game is that you roll a dice not to see if the hero is going to win or lose, but to see if they can just save everyone, or if they suffer losses on the way. But that fundamental like I'm going to stop whatever this threat is never in question. I that was a big push of the game, and a big reason that I wanted this game to have that kind of hopeful tone, is because I I wanted this game to not be a game where you go and you build this hero and then they lose and you go home sad. Like, to me, that's not reading a superhero comic. That's not a superhero experience. Like, you know, I can play a game of I can play another superhero game and have that happen. I just roll badly, things don't go my way, and I lose, and this superhero has a terrible life. Like, I didn't want that, because that's not superheroes to me. Like, and it ties into that kind of hopeful aspirational fantasy of like, I want to watch this character succeed at these things. And a lot of it was finding that drama to say like, okay, if I'm taking that as an assumption, if that's a baseline assumption, where is the push to that, right? Like where is the oomph to that? And a lot of this was me just trying to break down the thing that is appealing to me about superheroes, which is that hopeful idea of we're going to succeed. Like we are going to continue fighting, and we will suffer and we will lose things, and sometimes we will lose people, but that act of getting back up is such a powerful one that like that moment really became like the crux of the game of like, you're going to, you know, no one is going to roll only sixes and save the day every time. Like you have to accept those failures. And to me, that was like the hardest part of the game, but also the most hopeful. And the thing that like made it really click for me was I wanted that experience of you have to make that conscious decision to be good and to keep being good, even when it's hard and even when you feel like you have lost everything.
I mean, it just, from reading the game and listening to the actual play, like that just comes through so much in the text. And I remember when I first was reading the game and understanding it, right away that if you're playing with three players, one person's going to be a hero, one
Hmm.
person's the city, and one person's the villain. And right away I'm like, oh boy, you're going to have some contention. You've got like competing players, competition in RPGs. How's that's
Hmm.
going to go? But because you've laid out the groundwork, because you've laid out the story arc sort of ahead of time, and exactly like you say, you're going to win. Like
Hmm.
it helps. It provides the lubricant so that there isn't that conflict, right?
Yeah.
You're. I think that's why I love this game so much, is that you get this really cool emergent storytelling that is a guided process, and
Hmm.
we all kind of know what kind of story we're telling. So it's not multiple authors writing, one's writing a horror story while another one's writing a story
Oh
of
yeah.
redemption. It's very, I absolutely just love that.
One of the things I'm really proud of is in the descriptions of the roles, like in the player role descriptions of like, this is what's going to happen, like this is what happens in the game. I love that the game tells you explicitly that, like, the character that plays the villain, it says in there, hey, you're gonna lose. Like in the player, it's like if you're playing the villain, you're gonna roll some dice. You're gonna tell the hero when they fail to save people. You're gonna give your big villainous monologue, and then you're gonna lose. And then the hero's just gonna win, and your story is one where you fail. And like that it's exactly like you said, like it sets those expectations up front, and I was really proud of that sense of like making it so that, and the hero in the same way, it's like, hey, you're gonna suffer losses, but the last line of the hero's thing is you are going to beat the villain and save the day. And like it's that to your point, it's that hope, right? Like it's that fundamental optimism and idealism of like, you're gonna win. You just have to make the choice to keep playing. And I think that's really powerful. I think that's really like, even in that point in the game, I like how that tells the players what's coming.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, that's everything that I've got for questions on my end. So I was just hoping that here at the end you could tell folks, where they can find you, where they can
Yeah.
find the game. You've got the cool stretch goals thing going on for the game. I know you've unlocked one, so maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you what your favorite superhero is, but you kind of you answered that one early on.
I
It's Superman.
I hate to give it away. I don't know how you sussed it out
I
on this
know.
one.
I'm a psychologist. I'm in your head.
You're in my
I
head.
figured it out.
You picked up on the clues. God, yes, it's like Superman. He wasn't always my favorite. I was very much the obnoxious 15-year-old that would turn up his nose and go, Superman is so powerful that he's boring. And it wasn't until right when I graduated high school, which would have been 2005, not to age myself too much. 2005, I graduated high school. Justice League Unlimited ended. Like the last episodes of Justice League happened. And then Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman came out, which is my favorite comic book ever written. And I read All-Star Superman, and I remember just weeping. I remember it just breaking down, crying, reading it. And then watching Justice League and watching Superman he gives this incredible monologue at the end of the last episode when he's fighting Darkseid about like, I have to hold back every single day. Like any day I don't hold back is a day that someone gets hurt. And like the role that Superman plays in that show is so perfect. And it's so, and like those things together, I was like, oh, do I love Superman more than anything? Oh, got it. Okay, yeah, I'm a Superman fan for life. We're good. We're locked in. So yeah. So to answer your question, you've just sussed it out correctly.
All right.
But yeah, my name is Jeff Stormer. You can find my work at jeffstormer.com. You can find Anyone Can Wear the Mask at jeffstormer.itch.io/mask. Like Spencer said, we are raising we've been raising money. We've put in some stretch goals into the actual itch page. The first one, which isn't technically on the page, but we did unlock it, is we were raising money to pay for the internal art on the book itself. And then once we had the art for that, we laid out some extra stretch goals. The first one we unlocked, which is we're going to be writing a series of pre-written superhero scenarios. And I've written the first one. It's done. It's going through layout and art right now. And the idea is it's super fun, and I can't wait to bring stretch goal writers in on it, because literally all it is, hey, write about a superhero and a cool city that they live in. Make it fit 2 pages, and it's great. Like, so we've done that, and we're going to have some pre-generated scenarios for the game with a hero and a city that they live in, so that you can kind of pick that up. It's just going to be like a 2-page, 1-sheet front and back document. You can pick that up and basically run through the game and skip all the character creation stuff. And then we have some other goals. I really do want to pay Aaron Catano Saez to make an audiobook of this, because Aaron is my favorite person. I'm literally, after this recording, hopping onto a recording with Aaron. I'm super excited. And so like we've got some extra stuff like in the pipeline to pay people to make extra content for the game. And yeah, I think it's a game that I'm way proud of. It is one of the most personal and most proud things that I've written in my time as a game designer.
Well, I think you that pride is well deserved. It's a
Thank you.
fantastic game. I can't wait to play it. I know that you mentioned that in the rules that you can play it solo. So I'm actually even curious about trying to do like a journaling thing with it just to test it out. But I really am excited to play it myself. I think it's wonderful. Like I said in my video, it's so clear, Jeff, that you love superheroes by reading this game. So if you love superheroes, this is going to be the game for you. Thank you very much for coming on and chatting with me.
Oh
I
yeah, of
will
course.
talk to you and talk to everyone else later. Bye,
Hi
everyone.
everybody.